So there was a time in my life, in my late 20s, when most of the people in my lively social circle were people I had never met. In most cases, I didn't even know their names. I knew their internet handle, and I knew the city that they lived in, maybe. We connected through an online discussion forum about parenting that was connected to an up-and-coming internet news and culture magazine, all the rage back in the days of the dot-com bubble. And it was all part of this new thing called the World Wide Web that I was just catching on to in 1998. So at 28, I was a single dad, newly relocated to Indianapolis. I was feeling isolated. I was resource constrained. I had little time, no money, no connections. And I was an introvert's introvert back in the day. I was bad at meeting people. I was bad at small talk. I was intimidated by crowds. I was bad at making social connections in group settings. These days, I'm a professional extrovert, and I love it. Back then, not so much. I didn't know about UU churches then, and even if I had, for me, the logistical and social barriers to attending a church would have been pretty high. Now, I was aware that people talked on the internet, online bulletin boards, chat rooms had existed for decades at this point, but I never participated in them, didn't have much understanding in them. And when I stumbled onto this discussion group by accident, it was linked to an article I was reading, what I found online felt like something different than the sort of random internet chat that I was expecting. The few hundred or so people who had gathered virtually from all around the country on this parenting forum knew each other. Some of them had known each other for years, and they cared about each other's lives. They supported and encouraged and challenged each other. What I found online was a community at a time when I needed a community. As a single dad, I needed people to connect to, and talk we did, not in real time, but by posts like on Facebook. We talked about a little bit of everything, politics and culture and current events, but mostly we shared the joys and the challenges of parenting, and we offered each other a lot of advice and practical wisdom, usually solicited, sometimes not so much. It was a real community, as really real as any community I've been a part of. And while it did not survive the dot-com bust, sadly, while it existed, it was terribly important to the people who were part of it. For me, it was a lifeline. Who knew talking to strangers, who knew connecting to people could be so easy, so fun, so natural, so anxiety-free? So I've been an admirer and an enthusiast for online community ever since. And so the first thing that I want to lift up, and if this is the only thing you remember from this sermon, that is okay with me. Online communities are real communities, as really real as any other kind of community. Online relationships are real relationships. An online gathering can be as rewarding, enriching, supportive as any other kind of gathering, albeit with its own unique qualities. And like any community, online communities can also be dysfunctional or problematic, but they can be beautiful and life-saving, sometimes in ways that in-person communities struggle to be. So for one thing, online gatherings can be more accessible than gathering in a physical place. For people who don't drive, for example, or people with mobility issues, or people who are neurodivergent and may find that neurotypical social norms are not welcoming, or any of a number of other things. People who are used to gathering in a particular place in a particular way are often unaware of the accessibility issues that they are presenting to other people. Because by definition, it's working for them, or they wouldn't be there. So Zoom makes UUI more accessible, and for that reason alone, we'll keep on Zooming. I like Zoom services on their own merits. They have their unique charm. The Zoom chat, for example, makes it easy for people to respond to what's happening. I think the Zoom space can actually be a little livelier than the sanctuary space sometimes, and it wouldn't be a bad thing if some of that Zoom chat spirit carried over into the sanctuary. Online life is also often asynchronous, meaning that there's a conversation or a group activity going on, but you don't have to be there at a certain time to participate. You log in, you add your 2 cents when you're able. And for people who work odd hours or long hours, for parents who can squeeze out just a few random moments for themselves here and there, for students with unpredictable schedules, it's a wonderful and empowering thing to be able to connect and share with a community at a time of your choosing on your schedule when you have that moment of energy and attention. Online life has a culture oftentimes of sharing and appreciation. You share a thing, I share a response. I share a thing, you share a response. Now, Zoom is an exception in that Zoom events are not usually asynchronous, right? We're having Zoom worship right now, but you still have to be up and at your computer at 11 a.m. on Sunday morning to be a part of it. But on the other hand, conversation and sharing can happen, for example, on our Slack channel at any time. And this kind of asynchronous connecting is something that UUI should be considering expanding on in the future. See the e-blast if you want to learn how to join our Slack channel. Now, the fact that online communities are geographically extended communities, that they link people across potentially vast distances, this can be one of the most important things about them, particularly for people who are isolated in their home community. Right? Online communities allow people who don't fit into their local scene, for whatever reason, to connect with like-minded, like-hearted, or similarly situated people all across the country and potentially the world. So for an LGBTQ kid who's being bullied, or a neurodivergent kid who's experiencing prejudice, or a kid in a small town with just unusual interests, this can give them an opportunity to connect with others and learn, I'm not alone, I'm not weird. Or maybe I'm wonderfully weird, but I'm also connected and supported and I matter. And someone else wants to read my Hunger Games fan fiction and swap cosplay tips. And that's amazing. And this connection and affirmation is the kind of thing that UU churches aspire to do, right? Minus the fan fiction, maybe, or maybe not. But there are not that many UU churches in the country, and not everyone is going to find their way to a UU church. And so how wonderful that the internet has created this tool for people to find and support and affirm each other and build their own communities. And how wonderful that UU churches have the ability to extend and reach their own welcome, including UUI. So here at UUI, we have a beautiful campus. We have a beautiful campus, and we have a beautiful sanctuary. And we're justly proud of the community that we have built over 40 plus years of coming together on Sundays. And I know that after COVID, people are feeling a loss of some of that local vibrancy, the vibrancy of gathering in person, right? And there's some anxiety about how and when and whether we'll gather in person like we used to. Let's just name that. And in the last 2 years, we have built an exciting new online presence that we never had before. And it has sustained this community over 2 years of COVID and connected us in new ways. And it has allowed people to connect who could never have connected to us before. And that's a beautiful thing. And I know that there's some anxiety about whether the church will continue to support and invest in that kind of community. Let's name that too. And then there's just all this uncertainty and not knowing in general, what does the future of this community even look like? And what do we imagine it can be? Here's the thing. People want community and need community and are really good at finding and making community when they share something they love and something they're excited about. And that can look like a lot of things. So I want to lift up one more example, if you will bear with me, of community building that may be germane to the future of UUI. It is certainly germane to the future of Unitarian Universalism. Once upon a time, way back in 1988, a guy named Joel Hodgins and a few comedian friends living in the showbiz mecca of Minneapolis, Minnesota, had a rather improbable idea for a TV show. What would happen, they asked, if a group of mad scientists launched a janitor into space, and the scientists experimented on this janitor's mind by forcing him to watch B movies, bad B movies, some of the worst and weirdest movies ever made, some of the most misbegotten creations in cinematic history, and that janitor maintained his sanity by building himself some robot friends out of spare parts. And the janitor and the robots made fun of the movies as they watched them, and the audience got to watch along with them. What would that be like? So this was the proposition, a 90-minute show about watching a guy watch a movie, a bad movie, and he makes fun of it. with robot puppets. What about that? And what if we called the show Mystery Science Theater 3000? Now today, after decades of internet snark and memes of memes and YouTube reaction videos and people live tweeting events in real time, this concept feels more familiar to us. And a big part of the internet is just the internet reacting to things, usually something on the internet. But if it seems familiar to us now, that is in part because of that show, Mystery Science Theater 3000. In 1988, none of this was a thing. The internet was barely a thing. In 1988, this was about the most unlikely idea for a television show imaginable. But MST3K, as the show is affectionately known, debuted on Minneapolis public access television, KTMA, in 1988. It was not a ratings hit, to put it mildly, but a funny thing happened. The station started getting flooded with calls of people who loved the show. So the comedians involved turned it into a local live event. They did it live. And more than 600 people turned out for it. And now they knew that people were getting excited about the show. And with that kind of support, the show got picked up by a new cable TV station called Comedy Central, largely because the channel was desperate for content. The ratings were not good at all. But another funny thing happened. People started deluging the creators with fan letters, and the creators then made a point of reading one of those fan letters at the end of the show every week. And so viewers began to see that there were other people out there who loved the show just as much as they did. A fan club was created and a newsletter was created, and eventually the show would receive 50,000 fan letters a year at its peak. Then another thing happened. MST3K happened to arrive at the same time that the VCR had become a popular consumer item. So people in their homes began recording the shows, and then they began trading the tapes with each other all around the country through the mail, if you can imagine such a thing. And rather than sue the fans for piracy and copyright infringement, the creators recognized that something important was happening. So they added a tagline to the end of every episode: "Keep circulating the tapes." Keep circulating the tapes. It was a call to the fans to build community, keep spreading the word. Then the internet grew, and fan communities by mail became fan communities online. The MST3K people found a variety of ways to build community and bring people together. They held annual conventions in Minneapolis, bringing the faithful all together in one location, but they also took it on the road, taking a live show to where the people were in different communities. There was a very popular MST3K TV marathon that happened every Thanksgiving, and that encouraged a group of friends to gather in their living rooms around the shared experience of the show. So today, MST3K is an enduring cultural phenomenon. It went off the air officially in 1999. It never left the public awareness. It never lost the support of the people who loved it. And now new seasons are being created for a new generation thanks to the emergence of yet another new community organizing tool, this thing called Kickstarter. And MST3K is considered one of the most important and influential cult TV shows of all time. And my point is, one of the reasons for this is because the people who created it were really good at fostering a community of fans in a variety of creative ways. There was the show itself at the heart of it, but then they created all these ways of forming connections, sharing letters, trading tapes, gathering online, gathering in person, gathering at one place in a big crowd, gathering in small friend groups and homes. The future is not one way of connecting. It is many ways of connecting. It is not either or, live or virtual. It is both and, where the and includes in-person gatherings and virtual gatherings and gatherings in our living rooms like the Dinners for 8 at UUI, and real-time chat and asynchronous discussion like on Slack, and sharing videos, and big celebrations and local celebrations and things we haven't even thought of yet. We have so many ways to create community now, and they all matter, and they all have a part to play. And so the future right now invites us to be creative and imaginative and to try new things and to have fun with it. to have fun with it. Because remember, at the heart of all of this is sharing this thing we love called Unitarian Universalism, which itself calls us to build the beloved community together. I don't know what that looks like in 2022 or 2023 or 2024. Neither does anyone. But I am excited and grateful to be a part of it, and I hope you are too. And I cannot imagine a better community to be on this journey together. Amen.